I think there's one thing we do definitely need to talk about with you, because the last time you were with us, we talked. I was just after the Will Smith incident, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
From
memory. Well, it was a little bit after. Yeah, but yes, yeah. You wanted to talk to a comedian about it. Fair enough.
Yes. So, as for someone who's been on stage, well, you were a good person to talk to about experiences on stage. And late last night, I know it's actually before I went to bed, so it was late last night, we got news that Dave Chappelle had been quote unquote attacked, and I'm putting parentheses around that because, you know, you flick someone across the ear, it's an attack. You stick a knife in someone, it's an attack. So it's, you know, it's on the more minor end of. Although I heard something today that the guy had a fake gun.
Yeah, with a blade attached to it. He has actually been charged with assault with a deadly weapon.
Okay, I withdraw my.
Yeah.
I was starting to go down a commentary of a little less serious, but no, I withdraw all of it. I wasn't completely clear on that. Yeah. So withdraw all of that. So yeah, so this is some video that came out. Everyone would have probably seen this by now, but if you haven't, here is Dave Chappelle. You know, it looks like, you know, Dave Chappelle's playing second five and the opposition team's coming up to try and hit him around the waist with a pretty good tackle. That's what it looks like. It's not a very good angle. I think there's a closer one, I'm pretty sure.
There is, yeah.
So this is the hubbub going on around stage. Dave's on the ground there. Oh, come on, let's get a better. Come on, where's the better angle?
That Will Smith?
Oh, that was Chris Rock came out.
Was that Will Smith?
That wasn't a very good angle. I'll find a better one while we're talking about it. But this has obviously started a whole conversation around, you know, safety on stage, comedians, and we'll just say performers because wouldn't have to be a comedian. Dave Chappelle made a joke about it being a trans man. I don't know if that's true or not. It might have just been a throwaway joke. But now the conversation is going on. Is it a trans activist attacking him for his last special? Is it because they've seen it modeled by Will Smith on stage? Or is this just a lunatic with mental health issues? But while I look for the clip, Jeremy, go for it.
Well, yeah. I mean, going off the you know, scattered headlines that I've been reading today, my first impression is that this is a person with no fixed abode is the term they've used,
right.
Or not having an address, I think is the term. It's a homeless guy with, apparently, it seems to be with mental health issues. So, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's not, we talked about this before we came on air. It's not necessarily, that's not a sexy headline. Dave Chappelle is obviously has, you know, had his controversies over recent years with his specials, with his particularly with his comments on the trans community. The fact that Chris Rock was able to come out and refer to the Will Smith immediately links the two things in a funny way. It's great. The big question here, obviously, I mean, the Hollywood Bowl is not, we're not talking about an open mic gig. It's some strip mall in small town America. I mean, this is a major venue. And you've got to ask, where the hell was the security? You know, if it can happen on stage at the Hollywood Bowl, what's going to stop it happening on stage at Spark Arena or something? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's far too early to say. My immediate instinct is that this is not what we were talking about the last time we were on. This is not that the Will Smith thing at the Oscars has opened the floodgates of people thinking it's okay to attack comedians. This appears to be some guy with his own issues decided to take it out on a big stage. But I mean, it's a pretty serious attack if you look at it.
Yeah. I was going to withdraw my tackle. It wasn't a particularly good tackle. He didn't have his body in good position there.
Yeah.
George, just play it. George, this is George sharing his screen. George, just take it back. I'm going to put your sound back on, George. I want to see what he says beforehand in the build up to it.
Behind me on the DJ table is one of the most prolific producers that hip hop has ever presented, the mighty Mad Lib. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for hip hop history.
And yeah, the crew comes out. Just keep rolling it there. The crew comes out there. I saw a headline about Jamie Foxx coming out on stage, and the dude was put into an ambulance when he was taken away. So he was obviously dealt with fairly harshly by not just security, the non-existent security, but also there were some performers and stuff that got into Chrissy and Dave as well. Chrissy, look after.
I'm going to kill them.
So, I guess I got to say,
I see you.
there we go. So this is after the event. I haven't seen any of this yet. Dave popping off stage. All right, I'm going to mute that. Yeah, so I guess it's just a headline. It's a tabloidy headline, and I wanted to have a look at it and see what your perspective was. I mean, have you? I might have asked this last time. Have you ever felt like not very secure at a gig or anything, or is it just a completely different culture in New Zealand?
I've had aggression at gigs. I did have one situation in Wellington once where a guy was getting very aggressive towards me on stage. Thankfully, that was in an incredibly well-run venue, and he was dealt with very quickly by security. He did go out and attacked somebody on the street after the gig. He took it out on a random stranger, and so by the time I left the gig, there were 4 police cars, and he was being dragged away in handcuffs. But again, I mean, it was a situation that potentially could have gone wrong. It's about the only one I can think of. I know comedians overseas who have been attacked on stage. I know someone who's had a gun pulled on them while they've been on stage in the US. So this is not a new thing. Like we talked about with the Chris Rock thing, it's not something that I worry about for myself. It's something that I kind of worry about for first timers, or people doing their first, second, third gig in some small pub that does not have bouncers, which is where everybody starts. You're in a back room of some pub, or on stage in the corner while they turn the rugby league off just before you start, which is literally how my career started. That's what concerns me, because a lot of young comics make the mistake of understandable mistake of thinking that one way to cut through and get noticed is by being deliberately offensive. So it worries me that it can happen there. There's a whole other concern, which obviously does not apply to me, was how this happened at a major venue, this was the Netflix is a joke comedy festival.
It's pretty
big event. I mean, you look at the lineup and the fact that you've got Jamie Foxx, Dave Chappelle, and Chris Rock on the same bill. It's kind of and if this guy really did have a replica weapon with a blade attached to it, I mean, how the hell he got that into the venue in downtown LA is
how he got it into the venue, how he got on stage. And actually, when you have a look, I've got a freeze frame on my screen. I'll bring my screen back up. When you have a look at that impact there, how that if there was a blade on the end of it, how that blade didn't end up piercing Dave Chappelle.
I mean, one of the headlines I've heard is that he had the weapon with him, but they aren't sure if he intended to use it. So I'm not sure if he was actually physically holding it, or if you can sort of see he's got a backpack on, whether it was in that. But regardless, I've been to sporting events in the US, and there are metal detectors on every gate. You can't take a bag into a stadium in the US unless it's transparent. You can only take a clear plastic bag so that they can see it as you walk in. So obviously they don't have that security, or who knows? I'm speculating here. Maybe he is a homeless guy who was sleeping under the stage. That happens. Who knows? But at the moment, it's a headline. It's a juicy headline. I'm not sure if it's I don't know if it's a harbinger of things to come, or and I also. There's no evidence to me that this was specifically about anything Dave Chappelle said on that night or has said previously.